Good afternoon. My name is Dale Rodriguez, and this is FlabongaMonthrothacube. Yes, nailed the name of the show. And with me today, I have Rob. Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Hello, it's going good. Happy to be here on FlabongaMonthrothacube.
Oh man, you've been practicing, haven't you? You've been practicing.
Yes, all morning. Yeah,
You nailed it.
doing
You
nothing
nailed it.
productive but practicing that.
For those who don't know, what's your last name, Rob?
Cockburn,
Okay, just
but
thought I'd check
spelt.
because
Yeah, it's a
but
Scottish
spelled.
name. It's whenever I
Mm,
speak to anyone who's Scottish, they know the name because there's like
mm,
a street in Edinburgh with that name, loads of buildings named
yep,
after it. But the
yep.
rest of the world all struggle with the name.
I'm familiar with it because I've met you and we've spoken and discussed it. Because first time I'm pretty sure I mispronounced it. So there we go. Um, Thank you for being on the show, by the way.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
happy to be here. Yeah.
Because you're like a live stream. I say a live stream veteran with me. Because we've done the geek shows before, but this is your
Yes.
first time on FM.
I'm a geek veteran, but now, yeah, first time here, 1-to-1.
I mean, you are pretty elite. Like I think you're a pretty elite guy. Yeah,
Yeah, I could.
yeah.
I've always been interested in like the origins of leet speak because a lot of them, like the reason why my own theory why three replaces the e in leet speak is because they're next to each other, and people used to make typos, and then it would be like, and they look kind of the same, so people would just let it slide. That's why I think the three is for an e in leet speak.
I mean, I never thought of it that way. And but I guess what I think is really cool about it is it's based on a European or English keyboard, right? Because I know other keyboards have letters in other places.
That's a good point. I know the
Like a
reason why.
German keyboard, I know. Yeah, so
I was going to say the word owned turned into like pwned in online games because O and P are next to each other as well. And that's how that
is that
started, I
why?
think. That's what I think, yeah. I might have just made that up. I'm here on your show
Uh,
delivering fake news, maybe, but it
Mate, this
has
whole show is fake
has
news.
some legs to it, I think.
I thought it came from all right. So being owned in a game, you get destroyed,
Yeah.
and you could be owned by an NPC. So like you go to a boss, right, and you get owned by the boss, and then player owned is when you get owned in PvP, and it got shortened to pwned.
Ah, maybe it is pwned then, player owned. It could be a mix of both.
I think it's probably both. To be honest, it's probably both. All right, because this is LinkedIn as a professional platform. This is a very professional show with very professional people
Of
like yourself
course. Yeah.
and myself. Please tell the audience. I say the audience. There's only like 3 people watching. Me, myself, and my cat. What do you do for a living?
I work in sales for a fintech company called Crezco. We're a payments company that uses open banking to initiate payments. My role is an
Hmm.
account executive, and everyone in SaaS
Yeah.
sales will know exactly what that is. I think like people outside of the sort of SaaS or fintech sphere might not know exactly what it
What's my
means.
first question? What's SaaS?
Well, SaaS means yeah, yeah. Anyone who's just sassy and working in fintech, that's SaaS sales. No,
Hmm.
it stands for software as a service, and I think it was.
Yep.
Well, now it just sort of generally covers any sort of cloud software. I think people can label it as SaaS. I don't think there's as specific a definition or criteria anymore. But I think it was originally just anything with a subscription service, specifically B2B.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I've forgotten what they used to be. There was SaaS, PaaS, and there's another one, isn't there? Like platform as a service, and there's another one, but I always
Yeah,
forget.
you have BaaS now as well, banking as a service, if you, which relates a bit to open
Wasn't
banking.
banking always a service?
Yeah, that's what confused me. Yeah.
Oh, no, you just said something really interesting there. Okay. For the uninitiated, you said open banking. What is this?
Yeah. Well, there's the side of open banking that's relevant to what I do, and then there's the more general. It's largely a piece of like legislature, um, and in Europe we call it PSD2, although I think PSD3 is coming out soon. I'm by no means an expert in the specifics of it, but essentially it means that if you give with given consent, banks can share your data with third parties
Hmm.
for like useful
Mm-hmm.
products. So what we do at Crezco is we don't really do the data side of things. We just use it to make a payment. So instead of you having to like log into your bank and manually type in someone's account details for a payment, you can just click pay the same way you would with like a credit card, but it just makes a bank transfer.
Cool. I'm going to ask you a really dumb question. How does that benefit me as an individual?
Well, it depends who you are. You specifically as Dale Rodriguez.
I'm Dale Rodriguez, host of FM.
Okay.
Acting like you don't know. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on. Don't do me like that.
When's the last time someone owed you money?
I mean, you mean like cash money? Because, you know,
yeah,
I'm gangster.
Yeah, when's the last time someone owed you cash money?
Oh, people owe me bare monies. You get me, bruv. Like, I'm out here wheeling and dealing, hustling, collecting.
Yeah, well, next time if you're hustling and collecting, if you gave them like a payment link or a QR code to pay you, and they could just click that.
No, man, I can't be doing that. I got to be trading in cash, diamond, and gold. It's got to be untraceable.
Well, in that case,
you know what I mean?
Might not be able to help you for those hustles.
I just realised I shouldn't joke about that, considering I work for a very respectable accounting firm. Obviously, I do not do anything of that nature.
It says business advisor below your name as well.
Hey, look, in the words of Jay-Z, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Sorry. Andrew Ward's here. Hey, Andrew. He says bards save lives. Do they?
They can do. I think they're mostly
they're no cleric.
Used to inspire people,
though. Again, for the uninitiated, what does Andrew mean?
Well, I think he's referring to the D&D class bards and their key supporting role for other people on your adventures.
What's a bard?
That's actually a tough question, because normally you just think of like some sort of musical performer in a fantasy setting, but I think you can be like a lot more general with it. Like someone who performs magic tricks would still probably be a bard. A poet would be a bard. A dancer could be a bard. Yeah, I think it's any kind of like performer or creative person. Then there's all the subclasses, but we're going to be getting far too geeky there for FlabongaMonthrothacube.
I don't know. Let's geek out a little bit. What are the subclasses of bard that you can recall? And I realise I'm putting you on the spot here, so like if you don't know, just I don't know, man. It's cool. I genuinely don't know. That's why I ask these questions. I genuinely don't know.
Well, they're all colleges for the bard, which sort of implies they have to go off and study it. And one of them is like the College of Swords, and that's just a bard that stabs people. Maybe they're like a heavy metal artist, and it's just really metal to play your song and then stab people. Yeah. Or I imagine maybe like a sword swallower, and then that's kind of bardy and performy, and then maybe that's more stabbing yourself though. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. You raised a really good question. Like, I'm gonna paraphrase it. What kind of class do you think your job role would be in D&D? And again, for people who don't realise, when we say D&D, we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop / mind game, as it were, adventure. So what do you think salespeople would be?
I think originally I would think bard, because it's all about, communicating, charisma. And then and you're the one, you don't have the actual frontline skills yourself. That's like the product team, but you're there supporting them and pushing them forward into customers. But then I realized that might be a very biased answer, because I'm in sales. In your like tagline for the show, what was it like? Sales is a dirty word to some, but if done well, it's a good career or something like that.
That's usually what I say. Yeah, because I think we've all experienced bad sales, and bad salespeople give the whole profession a bad reputation. This is my experience.
Yeah, no one likes being on the other end of like a bad sales interaction. You just be like awkwardly looking for ways to escape. But I think if you move that tagline into D&D, you could replace the word sales with rogue. Like, rogues have a bad reputation, but if done well, it's a great career.
Well, that's because they get you from behind every time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that would apply to sales.
The backstab ability, it's not. That
would be like phoning
in some environments.
mobile phone instead of like their office line? Would that be a backstab?
It depends if it's a personal mobile phone or not.
Well, my answer would still be barred. I did actually ask that question to my D&D party, and I had a couple good answers as well.
Go for it.
I'll go my favorite two. So one came from the programmer in the party, and he said, "Easy, I'd be a warlock because I can do some impressive things, but as long as my patron Stack Overflow gives me the power to do it," which I thought was quite funny. And then the other
That's
one I
very
really
good.
liked, he's completing his PhD in physics, and he says, "It feels a lot like being an artificer. There's lots of science, theory, and planning, but when it comes down to anything actually working, it's just magic."
That's really good. You know some very cool people. You know some very cool people. Okay, question for you. What do you think accountants would be? What would their class be?
Oh, that's a good question. And considering that I sell to accountants, I need to give a careful answer.
Mm.
We can rule some out. They're not barbarians, that's for sure.
No, they're not. They're not warriors either.
No, it's either. It's probably wizard, right? What class has the most exams?
Probably wizards. Yeah, yeah.
I've actually had to look up a list of the classes on my other tab just to make sure I'm not
That's
missing
cool.
any.
Take your time.
What class do you think accountants would be?
Well, now that you said it, I would say a sorcerer or a wizard.
I think a lot of people wouldn't know the difference between a sorcerer and wizard because they sound like, you could use them interchangeably. They're both people in robes casting spells, but do you
I
know the
mean, I might show
difference?
my ignorance here. My understanding is it's the type of magic they use and how they access magic. So I think I can't remember which way it is, but one has to like learn through spells and tomes and parchment and maybe recite incantations, and one actually has maybe raw natural ability and can channel magic that way. Is that the difference?
Yeah, yes. Sorcerers are just nepo babies and can just do the magic, whereas wizards
Yeah,
have to study and read loads of books.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that accountants would have to be a wizard at all. I think a lot of jobs just end up being wizards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, I realised interrupted you while you were talking about open banking, which again is what everyone is here for, to learn about business things and that. So I think I asked what would open banking do for me, and then I started being silly and talked about fake money. What would it actually do for me as an individual, Del Rodriguez, not business owner, just a regular person?
So, well, as a regular person, I guess it would depend what product you're using. But
Mm.
most of my knowledge is in open banking payments. One good example
Yep.
would be Splitwise recently integrated open banking payments
Mm.
into their platform. I mean, have you ever gone to pay for something with like a card, like maybe you're buying for something online, and they ask you to approve in your bank,
Yeah,
and then you have
I
to go
have.
into your bank and then approve, and then you have to go back to the website and complete the card payment.
It's really
So
annoying.
yeah, with open banking, it would just be pay and you scan your thumb on Revolut or whatever, and it goes straight out of your bank. So you don't have to mess around with the card. Obviously, if you're
Okay.
getting on the tube, you don't want to be opening up your banking app and logging in. You just want to tap and
Yeah.
go. I feel like you can't get
Yep.
much better than that for a long time. But in terms of like online purchases, it's a little easier to just go straight from the bank.
Yep.
A lot of the
All right.
benefits.
Let's flip it a little bit. So
No,
I interrupted you. Please
I was
continue.
going to say it comes on like the receiving end, but they wouldn't really. It's not like a huge difference for individuals, if I'm being honest.
Well, that leads to my next question. How would it affect me? Let's hypothetically assume I have my own business. What does open banking do for me as the business owner?
Well, if you're collecting payments of people,
Hmm.
a lot of people will like send out their invoices and just have their bank details on there, and it's the same as being like, hey, here's my bank details. Can you pay me for the pizza last night? You send out your invoice. You got your bank details on there. Someone's got to
Hmm.
log in, type those up. And I know, most businesses and B2B payments would do that, but people do get paid slower if they don't have like a pay now button. So you can people like add Stripe or other card companies, PayPal on there, so you get paid quicker. But if you sent me an invoice right now with Stripe on it and I click pay, I wouldn't pay you. I'd pay Visa first, then Visa pays WorldPay, then WorldPay pays Stripe, then Stripe pays you. And all those companies take a cut of the money. If you did it with an open banking payment link, yeah, and it's also in their account, so they can keep it. If you did it with an open banking payment link, it would go straight from my account into yours. So with a Crezco payment link, that's what happens. And then you get the full amount. And it would also go through instantly instead of after a few days.
Okay. First of all, you've picked up Crezco a lot. Nice. I'm going to ask you a mean question, because everyone asks me these kind of questions when I'm talking about this stuff as well. Safety, validation. How is my data safe with open banking? Because you've explained to me the traditional way of doing a thing is Visa, WorldPay, Visa, Stripe, blah blah, and through those there's usually kind of checks and measures to make sure that everything's legit and above board. When those processes are eliminated, how is my money safe as a business owner?
It's with your bank. So in that payment, Crezco would never touch the money in that specific payment. It'd go straight from your bank account, so Barclays or whatever, to your supplier's bank account. So it's as safe as it would be with the bank. So because Crezco's never in the flow of funds for those domestic payments, there's no added risk there.
Fair enough. If I'm not mistaken, a couple months back, Crezco secured a pretty cool deal / partnership with the mighty Zero.
Yes.
Do you know how that came about, and how has that affected you and your role?
I do know how that came about, because it actually came from me a few years ago chatting with like a product manager from Zero at a roadshow, and then we started working with Zero on that. And this would be on the other side of payments. So everything I spoke about payments so far was on the receivable side. This Zero partnership is on the payable side. So in this case, the payment flow is a little more complicated, but still a lot easier than alternatives. You just like click on all your bills, click pay, and business bank accounts. So personal bank accounts can't do this, but a business bank account can make a bulk payment. So it would just pay out all your suppliers with one click, and it would go straight from your account to theirs. And I think what's really nice in Zero is that you never have to leave the sort of like Zero page to do these payments. You don't need to go over to another bit of software. So even though Crezco is powering it, you're still in your nice little Zero bubble where everything's there and ready for you.
But there are some fees for doing that within Zero, right?
Yeah, Zero charge I think 20p per payment for that.
What? Stupid question. And you may not know the answer. I'm not trying to stitch you up. I'm just genuinely intrigued. So if I pay my 20p charge in Zero for the payment, and my bank has charges for making payments, do I get charged both?
Yeah, you still get charged by your bank for making payments. Yeah.
Okay. But in theory, it would just be quicker than going in and out of the bank to do the payments.
Be a lot quicker. So some businesses will have like 300 bills to pay, and especially if you're like a smaller business and you're maybe the director and you're the one doing these payments, you don't want to spend 6 hours on Friday doing that. You want to run your business. So for people like that, it is definitely worth the money. And it's not as expensive as it sounds, because you can merge the bills per supplier. So it's really 20p per supplier you're paying.
Okay.
But
that's good to know.
Yeah, maybe some people do find it easier to just go into their bank if they've only got 1 or 2 bills, which works fine for them. But then they have to go and reconcile everything in Zero too.
This is true. I'm going to ask you a silly question. Any TV show, fantasy series that you like to watch or observe, what's the one character you like to punch in the face with no repercussions?
The last show I watched what I'm currently watching is Shogun. And are you familiar with it?
Nope.
So it's like it's in like Edo era Japan, where Japan's still like locked off from the rest of the world. Like the only Western country that's interacted with Japan is Portugal. And then these British sailors come and finally find Japan, and they're trying to like open up trade with Japan. And he obviously can't speak to anyone. And what stood out to me in this show is in the first scene, like someone speaks out of turn at like this meeting, and then everyone looks at him and he goes, right, I'll commit seppuku. Sorry, guys, and sits back down. So I think in that show, I wouldn't want to punch anyone in the face because if speaking out of turn, you have to commit seppuku. I don't know what a punch in the face will get you. I'll have to think back.
So there's not one character like in the whole any universe you watch, Star Wars, Star Trek,
Oh yeah,
any show, Captain Planet. I don't know, just where you've gone.
I'm trying to think of a better answer than Joffrey Baratheon is the only problem. But that's probably.
I mean, to be fair, he's a hateable character.
Who would you pick?
Me, I asked this question the other week when I was speaking to Catherine Frimond, and I picked Neelix from Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah, I think that one's out of my area of expertise, sadly.
No, you never watched it?
I've never watched it.
Again, he was just an annoying character to me. Like, it's just I can't explain it. Like, don't go actor, great person, would never but the character, like, I was like, he get on my nerves all the time.
Oh, I've got my answer now. It's James from Twin Peaks. Have you watched Twin Peaks?
Oh, I have not watched Twin Peaks.
He's this guy. He's like this high school guy with leather jacket and motorcycle, and he gets a lot of screen time, but all he kind of does is just like stare at the camera like that in every scene.
Yeah.
After like the fifth or sixth time, he just starts becoming quite a punchable face, I think. Not that I'm a violent person, but in the area of Twin Peaks.
You're not a violent person.
Well,
Aren't you studying kickboxing or Muay Thai?
Well, that's like, controlled violence. That makes you less violent because you can control it, would be my argument.
I mean, spoken like a true serial killer, sure. I'm sorry, that was mean. I'm sorry. Andrew's gone into the comments again, by the way. I don't know why it's not showing up, but he's put assassin equals accountants.
Assassin equals... So that would be like a rogue.
That's harsh. That's harsh. Oh man. Okay, next dumb question. If you could eat one meat for the rest of your life, forsaking all others, you could never have any others, which meat are you eating? And I ask you this because I know you're not vegetarian.
My girlfriend is... No, not. My girlfriend's vegan, but I'm not vegetarian. Is it bad that my first way I started approaching this question would be what would give you the most nutrients, as opposed to what would be the tastiest?
No, look, man. There's no right or wrong answer. Like, if you want to go down the nutrients and macros route, then do it. Please, if you'd like to share your musings and verbal process, that will be even better.
The worst answer would be crab. Crab's the only meal you have to eat with a hammer. You really have to work to get the meat out of a crab.
Okay. Yep. True.
It's probably steak, because then if the cow eats grass, it's passed through as a vegetable, so it's fine.
I'm not saying you can't eat vegetables. I'm just saying that you can't have other meats thereafter. Like, if you picked cow, you'll never have a chicken again. You're never having beef. You never have.
I thought this is the only thing I could eat.
No. You can still eat other stuff. It's just that you can't eat the other meats you haven't chosen.
In that case, I'd pick crab as my one meat.
You'd pick crab.
Yeah.
For reals.
Yeah.
So you're picking crab, which is kind of hard to source, hard to catch, kind of expensive, and as you say, tons of effort. So every meal you want some protein that's not pulses, you're going to have to crack open some crab.
Go diving. Yeah, I'll go crabbing.
So I take it you really, really like crab.
Yeah, I don't have it very often, but it's one of my favorite foods. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Where does that come from? Have you always loved crab, or?
I grew up in Singapore, where crab's like a fairly common dish. It's like one of the most popular Singapore dishes is chili crab, which is one of my favorite foods. Not that I ever have it in London, but it definitely comes from growing up in Singapore. Yeah.
That was going to be my next question. How often do you prepare it? But I'm guessing almost never.
Never. No. No.
See, I'm not a huge fan of crabs because I'm not a huge fan of spiders, and crabs are just spiders that can walk underwater. So
yeah, the sea spiders. They're the underwater level for spiders.
Yeah, but I give you that, they do taste really good. And controversial opinion, I can't tell the difference between crab and lobster. Like, if someone's cracked it open and says this is some crab meat and some lobster meat, I'd chew it and I'd be like, these are all just giant shrimp.
Yeah, no, they probably do pretty much taste the same. I don't know. I've never had chili lobster, but all I know is I love chili crab.
Fair enough. Do you have a least favorite food, like something that if someone served to you, you'd be like, nah, sorry, I can't eat
it? There's probably nothing.
Not including allergies, of course.
I'm fortunate enough to not be allergic to anything, but there's probably no food I can think of that I would turn away. but I'm not a big fan of milk chocolate, which usually doesn't get a good response from people. I'm not
So you
sure
prefer
why.
dark chocolate?
I like dark chocolate, yeah, but yeah, milk chocolate, white chocolate, not a fan. It probably goes back to maybe one Easter when I was a kid and probably ate too much chocolate, and then my subconscious went, that has to stop, and has now switched it to be a dislike.
I'm kind of the same with Jack Daniels. Like at university, I drank too much of that at one go, and now like every time I can still drink it, but like sometimes I was like that the reflex is still there. I'm just like, yeah.
I thought you were gonna say like one Easter as a kid, but university would make more sense.
Oh yeah, I was 9 years old, and I was just given a bottle of bourbon, and yeah.
The rest is
I was
history.
going to ask you another question, but I completely forgot. You distracted me.
Are there any answers on the show that you've had that have completely thrown you off before, or is there like a favorite answer you've had before that you still remember?
A favorite answer. Okay, so the moment you asked me that, I tried to put them into categories because there's been some funny answers, there's been some sage wisdom advice answers. The one that came to mind in terms of good advice, it was Eamon Cowrie. He was on several months ago. So former EMEA of Zero, and I was a Scope in the Middle East. He talked about defining your career and like going for it. Like he says, many people they want career, they want progression, they want a larger salary, but very rarely do they sit down and like kind of map out what they want and then ask people within the organization for help. And I don't know, I found that quite profound. I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense. Actually, go ask your boss or your manager to help you achieve that goal. If they're decent people, they'll want to help you do it. So that was one of the most profound ones that I had. Funniest episode, I had an episode with Gareth Wax, a really great guy, does some LinkedIn training. He has several companies, but usually under the brand of Purple Fedora. We ended up talking about one of his mycelial companies, so mycelia as in mushrooms.
Yeah.
And John Toome was in on that, and it was supposed to be a half an hour of like actual like proper business talk. There was just so many mushroom puns. There was just so much ridiculousness. I laughed about 20 minutes, and there was a half an hour episode, so that was pretty fun.
Wait, when you said he was a fun guy, was that a mushroom pun as well? Or was that just a coincidence?
That wasn't intentional. No,
oh, right.
that was a coincidence. That wasn't me being clever. Way back when, one of the first episodes, I spoke to Nick Smethurst. He's the guy that named the show, and we talked about comic books for about an hour. My friend Sia in Texas, we were supposed to do an hour. We spoke for like 3 hours. It was ridiculous. We talked about everything.
I've met Sia on the Geek podcast. Yeah, she's funny.
Yeah, the one who defined dorks, geeks, and nerds within like a minute.
Completely.
We debated for a while.
Yeah, and then we had nothing. We were like, oh well, what do we talk about now? Yeah.
And again, for people who didn't watch that, and hopefully I'm remembering this correctly, Sia explained the difference between a dork, a nerd, and a geek. She said there's different levels. Nerd at the top, dork at the bottom. Nerds are the ones who like something with such a level of intensity they can analyze it and discuss like the full-on details and the backstory and the subplot and the things that the author wrote, if it's a book or a TV show. They'll know every single detail and they'll be intense about it. A geek will love something but maybe not know all the detail, but they'll still be intense and passionate about it. And dorks are people who support the geek/nerddom but are kind of there for the ride. Is that right? That's how she explained it?
I think so. I might have interpreted it slightly differently. I thought like a nerd is like someone who knows absolutely everything about the topic, but maybe isn't like as like passionate or like enthusiastic about it, but knows everything. A geek knows everything, but is really like enthusiastic and loves it. Whereas a dork absolutely loves the topic, but doesn't know a whole lot about it, but they're still really passionate about it. That was how I interpreted it, but I might have misunderstood.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. That's fine. Let's ask you some real businessy questions now. Okay.
Okay.
In your opinion, what makes a good salesperson?
I think it's being genuine. I think both about like the service you offer and in the way you communicate to who you're selling to. And I think why a lot of people might struggle with that when they first start in sales is you probably don't know the industry that well or even the product that well. So you might try to fall back on like sales techniques or like sales guides, and then that might come across a little bit plastic. But really, I think it's being genuine. There's these guys I follow on LinkedIn. I don't know who originally started it, but there's a few people who do it now, and they start their like sales calls. If they're doing a cold call with like, "Hey Dale, this is a sales call. Do you want to hang up or give me 30 seconds?" And they seem to have a lot of success with that. I've tried it as well, and it does work.
Does it work?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If you deliver it well, if you don't deliver it like with confidence, and if you don't say it as you really mean it, you'll probably get hung up on. But it does work.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that's the most important thing, just being genuine.
Okay. Without embarrassing yourself too much, can you give a bad sales experience you've had while you've been in the industry?
On the selling side or the being sold to side?
On the selling side.
I'm trying to think of a good one. I remember at the last job I was at before Crezco, we sold like foreign exchange services. Um, and I called up. It was a CFO, and I gave my like sales pitch, basically trying to blurt everything out before he had a chance to hang up on me, and then I asked him some question. How does foreign currency affect your business, or something like that? And then he replied, like, there's a few seconds of silence, and he was this very like stern Northern Irish guy, and he replied,
Yep.
"What did you have for breakfast this morning?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "What did you have for breakfast this morning?" Like, Weetabix. And he's like, "Okay, now how does it feel to be asked like random questions out of nowhere?" And I'm like, "Fair enough."
Oh, that's mean, but not as mean as it could have been.
Yeah, I remember that one because it was the first call I had that ended up being more than like 10, 15 minutes. Because I asked him back, what did he have for breakfast? And then we chatted for a bit, but I don't think he particularly liked me. I think he could tell I was very, very new, and it was like my first job as well.
Okay. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to go into fintech sales?
Figure out why you want to. I mean, it's probably advice you heard a lot, but if you understand the why, everything else comes quite easily.
Okay, then why do you do it?
Why do I do it?
Yeah.
Well, when I joined, it was like a startup, and I was very excited. It still is a startup. Very excited to like build something, and then look back and be proud of it, and build a team. And I think the reason why I like sales is I like interacting with people. I like listening to people, and I think where we are now, I never know what's going to pop up in my inbox the next day and what business I'm going to be working with. So I do just find it. I'm very curious about how it all works and get to work with a lot of different industries. So I feel like a bit of an explorer. I sit at my desk all day in West London, but I feel like a bit of an explorer, learning about all the different businesses out there.
Have you had any kind of shocking revelations in the last year? You say exploring. Any kind of like, oh wow, I didn't realize it worked that way, or like, yeah, any kind of proper wow moments?
The only ones that come to mind right now are there's companies that like we might have been a customer of before, or I might have been a customer of before, that have like come to us and started using us, and then I go like, oh my god, we're we're actually doing it now. These people are using us, and we used to use them. In terms of like how it actually works, there's nothing that comes to mind right now. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Will you be at the Digital Accounting Show?
I will. I'll be there on the Tuesday, which I think is the 16th.
It is indeed. Not on the Wednesday though.
No, I won't be there on the Wednesday.
Bad times. Bad times.
Yeah. What?
Will you be at Accountex?
I believe I will be at Accountex. Not sure if I'll be there both days, but I will be there.
Cool.
And then ZeroCon, I want to be there. That's the most fun, but I don't think we've confirmed who from the team's going out. Well, I shouldn't admit favorites, should I? ZeroCon's just as fun as all the other shows.
That was going to be my next question. Of all three, which one's your favorite?
ZeroCon. And not just because we have a partnership with them.
With them, yeah.
ZeroCon's really fun. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't ask you such mean questions while it's all live. You know, don't want to get you in any trouble.
I don't think these are that mean. They're fine.
Okay. I mean, do you want me to ask you meaner questions?
As long as I'm allowed to plead the fifth if I think they're too mean, sure.
Sure. Who's Crezco's direct competitor?
I think these ones are quite obvious, but obviously in the accounting space, so if you're an accountant looking to do payments, you could just do them through the bank. You could qualify the bank as a competitor. When it comes to international payments that we can do, you could use things like Wise. Some people use Remitly. Some people might even use like a bespoke like FX broker or something like that. And then there's a few tools specifically for accountants in the same space as us that we all see, like Apron and Nook. But then we also have like another side of things where we collect payments. In that case, competitors would be Stripe or PayPal. And then we can also integrate into people's software. So what we do with Zero is an integration with our API. And as far as I know, a lot of the companies I just mentioned, except for Wise, who used to have the partnership before us, don't integrate as much in the same way. So in that case, Wise and maybe Airwallex would be competitors in that sense.
Okay. I'm going to tee you up for a nice promo, right?
Yeah.
Why should I, as an accountant or someone who works in an accounting firm, use Crezco? Why should I care?
A lot of the time when I speak to accountants, sometimes they'll be like, I don't get involved with my clients' payments. And it's never because their clients don't need help. It's probably like one of the most time consuming areas for a small business. It's usually because getting involved with payments, it isn't worth like the risk. Either you have to be a signatory on your client's bank login, which is a huge insurance risk, or you could use like a client account. And I'm not sure if it's hit accounting yet, but like other industries that have clients accounts, like law, I know Barclays is shutting
client
down.
money's accounts.
Yeah, Barclays is like shutting down a lot of client money accounts, and it's a pain to get set up. And then there's other products that will, like the way Wise works, for example, the client could transfer money into the Wise account, and you can initiate payment from that, but you have to like keep that topped up. What we can do is you can initiate payments straight from or set up pay runs for your client's bank account without ever having to log in and linking it all to your account software. So everything that is in Zero, where your nice Zero, everything's there, it's nice, it's exactly what you want to be paid. Exactly that would end up in your client's bank without incurring any additional risk. So it helps you solve that problem and help your clients without having to,
Okay, that's pretty cool. Do you integrate with other software other than Zero?
On the receivable side, we do. So QuickBooks, Zoho Books, and a couple others. On the payable side, right now, Zero is the only one we're directly built into, but there is like a CSV upload function, and anyone can, most software can export a BAX file, which can be uploaded as well.
Cool, man. Thank you for humoring me, because I feel like I've just grilled you for a little bit there, which,
No, I enjoyed it. It's
we're
good.
supposed to be friends. I should be nice to you. Okay, when you play D&D, what class do you play and why?
The class I play right now is a cleric. And I think when I first started, I thought clerics were just meant to be like a healer.
Holy Ben. Yeah, Holy Ben, right?
That's what first comes to mind. But then, of course, in D&D, there's so many different like gods. There's lots of little weird ones. And because of that, there's lots of different cleric pantheons. So some of them can be quite funny. So the one I play is like a cleric of trickery. And the whole thing is, they got lots of spells to like manipulate people, make illusions, and trick and befuddle people, which I find quite fun. I'm definitely not the bad guy of the party, but maybe the antagonist, the heel, as they do in wrestling.
Oh, you're the heel, are you? So you like stirring up a little bit.
In the part, but I quite enjoy playing a cleric because they can be pretty they're always useful. That's the most annoying bit. Even as annoying as my character is for the party, I'm still useful because I'm the healer.
Do you think that's opposite of the way you are in real life? Like in real life, you're maybe more straight-laced, so when you're doing fantasy, you can unleash. Because hear me out. The logic I've got in this is you hear certain actors, they often play a heel character or an evil character, but in real life, they're actually quite jolly, or vice versa. People who play lots of jolly characters, but actually, they can be quite moody in real life. Do you think it's one of those things?
I think the character I play is definitely quite chaotic. I think in real life, I can be a little bit chaotic in my nature as well. I know like I've had to really work to become an organized person. So I think there's part of it that can just let loose, be myself a little bit, and maybe be the parts of myself that I don't get to be day to day. Might be the way I'd describe it.
Okay. What's your character name?
So,
Hector the Endowed.
I think so it's a weird character because I don't think my D&D party actually know the character's real name. And if I would, it's part of an ongoing plot I have that if I said it and they were watching, which they might be because I sent the link to them, it would spoil it. But they just call the character Scum at the moment.
Yeah. This is your party, right? The team that you are with.
Yes.
Scum.
Yes. Well, the character. So there was a character I played called Brodinius, who was like a fighter, and then something happened, and he slowly started changing and eventually he became a kobold and started acting very differently, and then the party started calling him Scum. But we haven't figured out why he's turned into Scum yet.
You need to explain for the people who don't know what's a kobold. I know what it is, but
it's like a little lizard man, I'd say, a little lizard person.
Okay.
They live in their mines and they dig and they hate gnomes. That's what a kobold is.
Yeah, pesky gnomes.
Yeah.
When D&D peeps talk about rolling nat 20s, what are they talking about? Please break it down.
So the literal sense is there's a 20-sided die, and the highest possible roll you can get is a 20. But what that happens in game is sometimes people will call it like a critical success. So you've gotten extremely lucky, and the task you're trying to perform, you're going to perform it like really, really well. Like, for example, putting the USB port in on the first time. Okay, we've got very different ideas of success.
Well, no. See, this is the fun about D&D, right? You can play games differently, right? So the idea is, if you need to get through a door and there's a guard, do you use your strength check to like knock the guard out and bash through the door, or do you try and flirt? And yeah, sorry, I jumped into your explanation. I'll be quiet now.
Well, no, that's a much better explanation. I was saying, like, if you put a USB port in and you get it right the first time, you've rolled a nat 20. But yeah, if you're flirting with the guard / barmaid in your situation and they're absolutely wooed by you and let you into the castle, then you might roll that. It all depends on the game master, though, really, and how they
game master or dungeon master.
What have they changed the way they say it? Or
well, I don't know, because when you say DMs to regular people, they'll just think about direct messaging. But I think dungeon master because
the dungeon master.
Although it's not always a dungeon.
No,
I don't know.
But yeah, it probably depends on how they let you act it out.
Right, because they'll usually say you have to roll at least a certain number to be successful, right?
Yeah. And then some people do, like, if you get a 20, no matter what, it's successful. And then others, it might still have to, like, so maybe the number you need is like 22. So you add your stat on. But I'm getting lost in the weeds of D&D here, though.
No, it's good. I think I could be wrong. People might want to know this stuff. They might not, but they might.
When I first started in sales, it was like a lot of outbound sales, especially since Crezco was like unknown. So it felt like every call I was making, it would remind me of like a random encounter in D&D. You have no idea, is this going to be a hostile encounter or? But yeah, starting all my calls with friend or foe.
Okay, you may not know the answer to this question, but I'll ask you anyway. What do you think has led to Crezco's success?
I think it's probably the company culture plays a big part. Early on, we sat down and chose a few things that we really value as a company. So all the decisions, obviously there's lots of things like some very talented people here and like a good strategy. For example, our integration strategy is what got us a partnership with Xero. But I think it all does boil down to culture. I don't know who originally said the quote, but our CEO, Ralph, re-quotes it a lot, that like culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Is that true? Do you think that's true?
I think so. Yeah, I think the culture is a lot about like why everyone's here, and if they're all here for the right reason, and we all want the same thing and value the same things that help our users, then everything goes in the right direction or the same direction.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a negative question. What's your least favorite thing about the accounting / fintech space? The biggest frustration, the biggest like.
A lot of the time, you'll be working with an accountant who's using your software to help their client. So sometimes I'll describe it as like playing pool. So I'm speaking to the accountant, giving them the information, and they have to pass it onto the client. So I have to talk to the accountant, and then that's the white ball, and it goes off to the client. So I think just having that extra link in communication, and I'm sure accountants are in the same situation, except they're in the middle. They're caught between speaking to me and then speaking to their end client, sometimes, or multiple end clients. But yeah, having like an extra link in the chain of communication can make things move a little bit slower sometimes.
Why can't the link be removed?
Sometimes they'll be using your software as part of a service they offer clients. So the client wants the accountant to use your software as part of the service. They don't want to use it themselves. They want the accountant to handle all their payroll, for example. They don't want to be doing their own payroll themselves. So the link is the accountant service. And then obviously once things are like set up and working fine, then it's no issue.
Okay. So is it sometimes there are teething problems with the setup? Is that what it is, or
no? I think it's just having, it's the end. It's the accountant's client we're helping, but the accountant has to speak to me and then speak to the client, and then going back and forth like that a lot would probably be my least favorite thing.
Lots of extra steps, basically, things taking longer than they have to because of other third parties.
Yeah.
I think that's a general frustration for almost anyone in the world of work. Yeah. I've asked you a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, you often mention that you used to be like a web developer, and then now you describe yourself as a salesperson. So one would be like what drove the eventual shift towards sales from more of a product role?
Yeah. So as a developer, I was middling to good at best, like 5, 6 out of 10. I didn't enjoy it that much. I got tired of having to update my skills every year. I mean, I know it's every job or role, but like with the pace of tech, it was just like, you know what? I'm not amazing at it, and I like not being cocky. I like being the best or in the top 10 percentile of what I do, and I was an average developer at best. Also, whilst doing my development web stuff, like usually front end stuff, I got given a very good compliment. It said, "Dale, you can speak geek and you can speak plain English really, really well, which makes you a very good asset." And I enjoyed doing sales more. So like you, talking to people, communicating, solving problems, and making sure it all just kind of works and kind of being the middleman to an extent. I enjoyed doing that more. So yeah, I like sales more. And like I said, wasn't the best developer on the planet, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much why.
I guess, following what you enjoy more and are best at does often make you end up in the best place. I forgot my other question, but it'll come back to me. Oh yeah, when you say you're in sales now, what sort of sales is that?
I mean, I'll be honest, my sales skills are getting a bit rusty at KR because I'm not doing tons and tons of sales, but it's probably quite similar to yours. So I am selling consultancy, right? So the idea being is, I ask clients why they do things a certain way and help them find a new way of doing it, hopefully without ticking them off, right? So challenging what they do and then coming up with a plan or strategy to make that better, usually using technology, not specifically to fintech. So it's usually quite a slow sales cycle. It's like, it's not a quick one and done, let's have a phone call, let's go. It's usually a question of, let's have a conversation, let's have a pre-scoping meeting, which is usually non-chargeable, and then getting under the skin of the organization. And one of the things that my role at KR, what I'm selling, is making sure that you plan and prepare properly before you do any kind of software change or implementation. One of the things I've seen countless times is, I don't know, a head of a department or the MD will go, our sales system isn't very good. Let's just go buy something. And they go buy something and they spend a small or a large amount of money on it, and they haven't consulted other departments within their business. And my job is to go, okay, look, before you do that, let's plan it. Let's actually ask, what's the impact of that? So just being like the kind of third party that looks and sees the gaps that you might be missing because you're in it every day. And just making sure that the implementations go well. Because, sorry, I realize I'm waffling.
No,
I'm essentially,
I'm interested.
Yeah, go on. Like, so essentially, like,
well, so you help them understand their problem in the first place and then figure out the best thing to solve it, and then make sure that thing that's solving it doesn't cause a problem for someone else.
Yeah, thank you. That's the way. That's what I do.
Well, that's what I understood from that anyway.
No, you phrased it way better than I did. So yeah, that's my job. I love doing it.
I think if you describe that to someone who isn't familiar with like sales, they might not even recognize that that's a sales role. The other day I was thinking, well, I say the other day, a few months ago, I reached the conclusion that every job in the world we can fit into product or sales. It's one of the two. Try it. Name if we name some jobs now, I think we can fit them into one of the two.
I am biased, and I'll answer that. I'll answer a bit. I kind of agree with you. I think everything is sales, right? Have you ever gone on a date with someone? Sales. Have you ever convinced a small child to eat vegetables? Sales. Have you ever? There's loads of things that we do that are sales or sales oriented, but people don't think it's sales. I'm biased. Okay, so any job is a sale or product oriented.
Yeah, because if your job is like, if you are the lead cellist in an orchestra, you're probably not doing sales in your job. There's probably not much sales unless you count like playing the music as somehow selling the orchestra. I would argue that's a product job. If you're in an orchestra, you're part of the product.
Okay. Window cleaner.
Window cleaner. Well, so if you own a window cleaning company, like you'd have to obviously sell your services. If you're the window cleaner yourself, that's product. You're making a window clean.
Yep. I think you're right.
There's some hard ones, like
have you
professional athlete can be a difficult one, but you can argue if you're in the gym building your body and training, that's like building a product, and then you are the product.
That's product.
Yeah,
you are the product. Yeah. I guess it also depends on the sport you're in, right? Because like athletics, for example, they get most of their revenue through sponsorships compared to other sports like football, where there's like they just get insane salaries.
Now in my head, because I played too many MMOs growing up, all sports are split into PvE and PvP. So player versus environment and player versus player. Athletics, PvE sport. Things like football, rugby, boxing, PvP.
But also certain forms of athletics, you are running against other people.
But in like MMOs, you might be doing like clearing a raid. People might be competing with how fast you can clear it. But I suppose, then I'm getting right to subcategories there. Then there are some races challenges just to finish the race. But
no, you're right. Now I'm thinking about it, like you're right. PvP, like some sports and the ability and how they're measured, the success of them is measured on other people having to be there, and others are not. And so, in theory, I don't know. Let's take javelin for example. All the world's top javelin throwers could do that, and they wouldn't have to be together. It'd just be like who's got the longest distance, right?
Yeah.
But the competitive element of it is seeing them do it on the day.
True. You have to show up and perform. But if you're playing football against a bad team, you'll get a higher score. If you're throwing the javelin against a bad javelin thrower, it doesn't make your score any higher.
You'll still be smashing it. Yeah. I mean, that also goes into the other thing. The difference between a sport and a game.
Yeah, well, and to relate it back to sales and work, people often say sales is like, it's really competitive. It's one of those competitive jobs. It's still PvE. You know, if like someone else on your sales team isn't a strong performer, it doesn't make your score higher. It doesn't make you smash quota harder.
But is it not PvP depending on what you're selling? Because you mentioned like 3 or 4 different competitors. You're PvPing against them.
Oh yeah, we're PvPing against them. True, but it
also depends on what kind of sales you do. Because I know, like for example, like certain cliches. So recruitment gets a bad rep for being bad salespeople. Not all of them are. I'm just saying that I know some really great recruiters, and also what do you call it? Rental and letting agents, sales agents for housing. They get a bad rep for being bad salespeople.
Yeah.
Thank you, estate agents. Thank you, because again, it's very competitive.
Yeah. Well, that's the other question I wanted to ask you. So you asked me like if there was a bad sales experience that I've been on the giving end of. I'm wondering, have you ever been on the receiving end of like a really good sales experience, something that stood out to you, and you were like, wow, that guy or girl knew what they were doing?
Yeah, and I'm going to give actually a very recent example, and I'm actually going to give a shout out to this person because, well, they actually tagged me something today.
You can't say me.
Apologies. No, of course, it's not you. I mean, sorry, that's really harsh. You're a great salesperson. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Clara Gebrecht from Know It. All right, like she sent me a cold email. Right, no one likes cold emails, and they're usually trash. I can't remember specifically what she said in it, but I remember this is like 6-7 months ago. It still sticks with me that like it was possibly the best cold email I've ever had in my life. Like it was just so good. Like it wasn't salesy, but like she kind of knew what we needed. It was like boom. She absolutely smashed it. And I even responded to her, I was like, this is the best cold email I've ever received. Yeah.
That's
a
good.
really good one, I remember.
So yeah, it was like, well, very relevant and genuine. Not like, here's what we do,
Genuine,
this, and this.
Yeah, genuine, relevant. Like I can't even explain it. I need to go back and find it. But it stuck with me. And I even responded. I said like, this is the best. This is such an amazing email. Thank you for sending it.
There was a contest someone did on LinkedIn a few weeks ago. I forget the person's name, but they linked up their inbox to AI, and they wrote some sort of script for the AI, and they were like salespeople, AEs, everyone, email in, and if you can get past the AI, you'll get to the real me, and I'll put you forward to like the relevant person in the company. And I don't know exactly how they programmed it. And I took a look and I was like, oh my God, there's no way I can do this. If all these people, I don't do like a lot of my initial like cold selling via email as well. I was like, there's nothing. So I wrote a haiku and I got through somehow.
Like actually you did the proper syllable count and everything. Wow.
Yeah, well, let's see if I can find it.
Please find it and please share it. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tee you up for this? Do you want me to be like a sales haiku from Rob Cockburn? And now, over to you, Rob.
I think the haiku's name is technically lowest scoring email haiku. And it was, pay your suppliers, get paid by your customers, all for free, Crezco.
That's pretty dope.
And
do you now have a call with this person?
I got through and we spoke. Yeah.
That's genius. That's really clever.
Sometimes it's weird that like the things that you don't put the most effort in or don't try, like what is it, the idea of like pushing gently, you know, if you're painting a painting and you really push your brush down as hard as possible, painting might not come out as good as you want it. But if you go gently with ease and don't try too hard, sometimes things come out a little bit nicer.
Yeah, like doing a big poo.
Yeah, exactly. I'm probably better at those than I am at painting anyway. Yeah.
That was very crass. Very crass. All right. It's been almost an hour. I've enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time to humour me and answer questions and share your wisdom and your nuggets. Before we sign off, I'm going to ask you one final question.
Yeah.
Do you have a bombshell, nugget, or last bit of wisdom you want to share or drop on people? It doesn't have to be sales or work related.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's going to be sales related. Don't be afraid of rejection. You know, you got to put yourself out there and get a load of no's in anything in life before you get the yes. That would be my nugget of, I don't know how wise it is, but my nugget of wisdom.
That's the best dating advice I've ever received. Thank you. I appreciate it.